We have only to enlarge our conception of causality, to excuse everything and forgive all. Now, let me just state one little thought from Scripture first, before we unfold it. As we are told in the 25th chapter of Genesis, in your limbs lie nations twain, rival races from their birth. One, the mastery will gain, the younger or the elder reign. The first one is the sense man. I'm now looking at this room and all within it, and that is the sense man. My normal apprehension of corporeal objects, just like this room and the contents, I call sense perceived. That which is not present, and yet I perceive it, I call that imagination. That is destined to rule. That is the second man, the Lord from heaven. The first man is of the earth, a man of dust. The second is from heaven. So here we are in this world, and this is the world of this dual state within every child born of woman. And so we have the physical man, the man of dust, and then we have the spiritual man, the man of imagination. That is the immortal man. When I see this picture of the duality of man and how all things are created by this hidden man, I forgive everything in this world that the physical man does for the physical man is only a state. One being is playing all the parts. The part played by the thief is the same being playing the part of the judge who judges the thief. The part who is the murderer and the murdered, he's a part, but the being within, he's one. Now, let me explain it first in the beginning with a simple story. About 8 years ago, I was in New York for a month, and two of my brothers, Victor and Lawrence, came up and spent 2 weeks with me in New York City. They're checked into the same hotel. They wanted to see everything they could within 2 weeks, and I brought them to 14 shows. And sometimes they went even to an afternoon show. They wanted to see everything in the crowded 2 weeks. But the one thing my brother Lawrence wanted to see was the new presentation of Aida. Well, the papers say it was sold out from the very moment that it was announced. Same music naturally, the same score, but new scenery, something new about it. Now, this captured the imagination of all opera lovers, and they all wanted to see Aida. The one thing he wanted to see was Aida, but the papers had huge big ads. Not one seat is available. Come down and buy a seat for the other shows. And this was the old Opera House around 40th Street and Broadway. It ran from Broadway through 7th Avenue, the old Metropolitan. So, this morning we set out, and I said, it doesn't really matter, let us go. We have to go down and have lunch anyway. We will go and just see. We got there, and these huge big signs on the outside. No seats for Aida available, and they were plastered all over the Metropolitan. I went in, and there were 3 lines leading towards the 3 windows selling tickets for the entire season, and there was no seat for Aida. I got into the first line. It was a very long line. Then I saw the 3rd line from me moving more rapidly than the first and the second. So I moved over to that line. Then we all moved rapidly forward. As we got to the window, and seemingly no hope of getting tickets, but before I left my hotel room, I simply assumed that I had the tickets for my 2 brothers. I didn't want to go. They wanted to see it. So I assumed that I gave them the tickets. I got into this line. We moved rapidly towards the window. As we got there to the window, a tall blond man, he must have been about 6'4", stretched his hand up over my head and diverted the ticket seller as he asked a question while one in front of me is buying seats, not for Aida, because that's completely sold out. He is buying 2 other seats for some other opera. Then he departed after he diverted the man's attention. This man pushed on some bills under the window. And then, as the teller looked at the money, and this man is at the door now, the tall blonde fellow, and he's given this man the ticket. And then suddenly he said, "For he only gave me $3. He should have given me," and he mentioned the money he should have given. At that, he was bewildered. The teller was bewildered. I turned around and I screamed at that tall blonde. I said, "Sir!" I screamed so loudly he couldn't stop. But the attendant, he turned around. I said, "Come back here. You're wanted." He came back like a little child being led by the nose. He came back and he said, "What's wrong?" And the man said, "This is all that he gave me. 2 $1 bills. Said, "Oh no, he didn't. He gave you 2 10s. Then I said, "No, you didn't. I was standing right here. I saw what you did. You gave him 2 $1 bills. That's all that you gave him." The man was flabbergasted. He was so completely dumbfounded, he didn't know what to do. I said, "I am standing here. I saw exactly what was done." Then he opened up his purse, and here was a stack of ones, and he had a $20 bill and 2 10s. He said to the man, "Say when you discover your mistake that I gave you 2 10s. And the man said to him, "At the end of the season." And with that, it was closed, and the man then took out the money and paid for the tickets and took back his 2 1s. Then I said to him, "I want 2 seats for Aida tonight, and I want them in the horseshoe circle. I want them center." He said, "Yes, sir." And he took from what is called the VIP. They always keep a few out. Though the house is sold out, they always keep a few seats for those who are coming, called the very important people. I am certainly not a very important person, but I saved him from the loss of $20, and he quickly took the 2 seats out and said to me, $20. I gave him the $20 and gave the 2 seats to my brothers. Now, a state called a thief. These 2 men have chosen to be thieves in their world. They're con men. It's perfectly all right. God made everything for its purpose, and even the wicked for the time of trouble. Read that in the 16th chapter, the 4th verse of Proverbs. He made everything for its purpose, even the wicked, for the day of trouble. For the day of trouble may not be a war. I was troubled how to get these tickets. That's a moment of trouble, and I simply assumed that I had them. I simply played my part in my imagination before I left my hotel room, that my brothers are going to see this show this night of Aida, the new presentation of Aida. They too, who have already given themselves over to the state of a thief, they had to actually come right into the line. I took the first line, then I move over to the third line because I saw it moving more rapidly. So he comes over to the third line and plays his part beautifully. If he had not done what he did, I would not have received those tickets because I am not a very important person. But the man looked me in the eyes and thought, here was an honest man. As far as he is concerned, I am an honest man who saved him from losing $20. And so he quickly took out the 2 seats. I paid for them. Naturally, he didn't give them to me. I was willing to pay for my seats, but you couldn't buy them. All over the place, sold out, sold out, sold out, all over the Metropolitan Opera. You could paste it on the wall. I mean, a huge big ad in the paper. Aida is sold out. And I went that day and got those seats right in the circle, in center row, for my 2 brothers, because one man played his part beautifully. He had given himself over to a con man. He finds it easy to make a living being a con man. There are those who are pickpockets. There are schools to teach people to be pickpockets. Do you know that? They come right out of the school and go into a profession. All right, that's their part. They play that part. Now, you play your part beautifully, and one of them can be instrumental in getting you what you want in this world. So, I wanted 2 seats for Aida. Were it not for a con man in that world, I would not have had those 2 seats. So, he comes into the line. Where I was in the line, he comes forward, and just as I got to the ticket window, he puts his hand over my head to divert the man's attention. And the one in front of me, who is buying 2 seats, not for Aida, because you can't get them. He is buying 2 seats for something else. And he puts out $2 bills instead of 2 tens. And then this man starts, and I turn around as though I was inspired. And with my full voice, I said, "Sir, come back here." He had to come back. So he came on back, just like a little child, and stood next to me. And he looked down at me. He wouldn't dare budge. "Well," I said, "you didn't give him anything more than what he is showing you now. You've given him exactly what he's showing you. Because I was fair, and I stood next to you. He was helpless. He couldn't hit me. He was many inches my height. I was 5'11", and he may be about 6'5" or more. A strong, strapping blonde, but he was impotent in my presence when I called him back. He only played the part, so should I not forgive him? There are infinite states in this world, and all you have to do is forget states. You play your part in every state necessary to make your part come to fulfillment at the moment that you need it. And so we went out for lunch, and my brothers, Lawrence and Victor, they had their tickets, and that evening they went to see Aida. So, in your limbs lie nations twain. They are rival races from their birth. One the mastery shall gain, the younger over the elder reign. And the younger is the second, and the second man is the man from heaven. And that man is your own wonderful human imagination, who is God. And there is no other God. That is the Lord from heaven. And the outer man that clothes him, he is under compulsion to fulfill the commands of that inner man. But everyone is falling into states, infinite states. To understand this world, you must think in terms of states. He has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. And so, use everything. But you don't have to think of which one will do it. Forget it. Who will play the part? I never saw that man before. Never saw his partner in their little crime before. That was their choice in life. There are those who have chosen to be pickpockets for the rest of their lives. So if they are caught in the act, all right, that's part of the game. They've chosen that part to play. Now, those who have chosen their part to play, like Mr. Hoover, who just departed this world, he chose that part, and there are others who chose other parts. Either wisely or unwisely, we fall into these things. But when the inner man begins to awake, he selects his part wisely. It's entirely up to us. So I tell you, everything in this world that you want to be, you can be. If you will know that there are only states, you move into the state because the occupant of the state does not differ from the occupant of any other state. The one who played the part that day of the con man to get 2 tickets for $2 instead of $20 and go on the street and sell them for $15 and make himself a quick few bucks. The same occupant is God. God is playing all the parts. So all we have to do is simply to expand a little bit our conception of causality to actually excuse everything and forgive everyone in this world. I forgave him because he actually was instrumental in getting me the 2 seats for my brothers. Were he not playing that part at that moment, I would not have had the seats. But before I left my hotel room, I simply assumed that my brothers had their seats, and they were going to see Aida, and they came off thrilled beyond measure. So we went down at seemingly no hope. I wasn't concerned about any hope. There were 3 long lines. After all, you're selling out just for the show of the night. You're selling for the afternoon show. You're selling for the evening show. And for the entire season. And by a month in advance, 2 months in advance. They're all there. And so here are the lines, and your 3 lines, and 3 windows open. And what caused me to move to that moving window? The Father in me. He knew which one is going to play what part, because they're all in states, and myself is fully aware of all the states in the world. And if you can play a part to aid me in the fulfillment of my dream, you will play it. If I need a thief, there must be a thief somewhere. He was a thief, and he played the part. Better part in my getting the ticket than if he were an honest man. If he came up and played the part of an honest man, then the man would have said to me, he wouldn't know me. I'm not an important person. And so we have no tickets. Go into signs, no tickets available. It's a sellout, but it was not a sellout, and a thief made it possible for me to get my 2 tickets. So, when you see this, you forgive every being in the world, everyone. They're all playing their part, so don't condemn anyone, because everyone will be instrumental in fulfilling your dream if you know this law. It's all infinite states, but remember, you are awakening to the reality of the second man. In this room, my simple apprehension of corporeal objects, the things on the wall, your hair, the chair, the house, this thing for a wedding tomorrow, all this preparation for a wedding. All this is to my sense man reality, and I think of something entirely different, and that is called only imagination, and that is the second man. Now, what do I want in place of what my senses are telling me? Let me now enter into that state and live it as though it were true and move forward in that state. Now, let me show you the difference now, because we started with that statement from the 25th chapter of the book of Genesis. An idea that is only an idea produces nothing and does nothing. It must be felt, actually felt, so that it awakens within oneself certain sensations, certain motor actions, in order to be effective. What would the feeling be like if it were true? Dwell upon that until the feeling awakes within you, these sensations. For imagination is spiritual sensation. That is the creative being in you. It's not just to entertain an idea. What idea? The idea must produce in you this feeling, which is a sensation, but it must be a feeling. What would the feeling be like if it were true? You dwell upon that until you catch that feeling. As Winston Churchill said, that the mood determines the fortunes of people rather than the fortunes the mood. The mood precedes the fortune. So, what would you want in this world of contemplating? What would the feeling be like if you had it? What would it be like if it were true? That is the story of Scripture. If I could only feel that I am already the man that I want to be, that I'm already the woman that I want to be, and feeling, then it's not only an idea, which as an idea without feeling will produce nothing. Now, it has everything, because in this story, he says to the second man, "Come close, my son, that I may feel you." The secret is in the feeling. So, he's always out. He is the first man covered with fear, the outer man, and Jacob is the inner man, the man of imagination, who is hairless. It isn't two little boys. These are only symbols. It's all in man, so come close, my son, that I may feel you. So he comes close and deceives his father through feeling. So the father feels, and he feels them just to be externally real. You can do it. There is no flower in your hand, but you can feel the soft velvet feeling of a rose. You can smell a rose, though it's not physically present. Try it. Try all these things with the inner man. And when you can actually feel it, so that you raise your imagination to the point of sensation, to vision, then the whole thing is done. It's done in a way you do not know it's going to happen. If it takes a thief to aid you, then you forgive the thief. Should I not forgive that man who tried to rob that teller of $20 when he did for me what no one else could do? I could go to all the brokers in New York City, and they couldn't get me 2 seats. I could go to anyone, and they couldn't get me 2 seats for my 2 brothers, and I wanted them to have the joy of seeing the new presentation of Aida. So I went myself, prepared in my imagination that I had 2 seats. And it took a thief to be instrumental in getting me the seats. Should I not forgive him for the part he played? He went to the door, this tall giant of a man. He looked back at me, but he wouldn't have the courage to come up and slap me. There was something in me that dwarfed him in his own mind's eye. So in spite of his height and his bigness and his strength, he couldn't dare strike me, for I was speaking from a different level of consciousness altogether. So I didn't condemn him. He played the part he had to play, and by playing it, I got the seats. So all we have to do is simply to widen, just widen a little bit, our conception of causality, to actually forgive all in the world, to excuse everything in the world. They're playing their part. So tonight, you want a bigger job, you want more money in this world, you want, and you name it. Well, it may be a thief who is going to aid you into getting, without knowing, he is doing it. Don't judge him, don't condemn him, just simply, you go forward knowing that I have ways and means that the physical man knows not of. My ways, the inner man's ways, are past finding out, and you simply go forward in the assumption that you have already achieved what now is only a wish, as far as the world is concerned, but you enter into the wish as though the wish is already fulfilled. So, what would the feeling be like? Come near, my son, that I may feel you. And so he comes close. He said, come nearer, my son. Then he said to him, you know, your voice is the voice of Jacob, but your hands, your neck, and your scent, you have the feel of my son, Esau. Esau is the outer world, so he gives emphasis to feeling. It transcends the voice. The voice was Jacob's, but the feeling, that touch, was that of an external world. He could feel the external world. It was a self-deception. He saved himself into believing that what he desired, he had. It's not 2 little boys born of woman. All this is parable. The whole story of the Bible is all parabolic, telling stories that unless you have the depth to understand it, well then, you'll never really. But me, I say you will. Eventually you will. And you certainly do understand it now. So tonight is a practical night. Do you know this night what you want, really what you want? Well, if you do the same thing I did in getting the 2 seats. Do what I did when I was locked out completely from marrying the girl I wanted to marry. I simply assumed that she slept here. I slept here. And I went sound asleep. And in 1 week, my wife did an act, which certainly I must forgive in the eyes of the world. She is condemned for taking what she did not pay for. And yet because of that act, I got my freedom. then who is the culprit? Am I not? If there's any culprit, I am. If there's any culprit in this world, it is God. There is nothing but God. God is doing all in this world. He created everything in this world. And so I fit in me. He is the second man. And the second man is my imagination. And that is God. For man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us, and we in him. The eternal body of man is the imagination, and that is God himself. Well, if I, in my imagination, slept as though I am happily married to a girl that the laws of New York State said I could never get because of my entanglement with my first wife, and in 1 week she performed an act which was judged harshly by society, and yet she was the instrument of my getting my freedom to marry the girl who now is the mother of my daughter. How can I blame her to perform that act? She was in a state, and who did it? I did it. I did it by simply assuming that I was free and happily married to a girl that the state of New York said I could never marry because of these ancient laws that restricted my desire to get freedom in that state. So, you'll forgive everyone in this world for all playing their parts. In my own case, I have seen thieves. I have seen all kinds of people play their part. They were instruments in the fulfillment of my desire. So how can I ever condemn all? The last cry on the cross, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Forgive them. The whole vast world is playing until he awakes in that body. He is playing the part, and he plays it automatically, unwittingly, for one who was awake, who knows exactly what he's doing. And so they all play their parts, for God in everyone is the same God. There aren't two gods. There's only one God, and that God is your own wonderful human imagination. When you say, I am, that's God. So tonight, you just completely, boldly declare that you are the man, you are the woman that you want to be, and walk in that assumption as though it were true, and then let all these sleeping states play their part. Now I tell you, in spite of what they appear to be, they are sound asleep. They do not know. He thought he knew what he did. He came right into my line and played his part. I could have remained on the first line and waited and waited and waited, and no one would have played their part there. I moved over to the moving line, and here he comes. And so how could I ever condemn him? How could I ever, in any way, feel other than thankful? I would say to him, thank you because you played the part you had to play. Like a play, so someone comes in on the play. The curtain goes up, and here comes the monster, and he plays it beautifully. And the audience hisses and condemns him. If there's any condemnation of the part, where is the author? Send for the author, for he wrote the part, and the author, if there's any praise, give it to the author. Any condemnation, give it to the author. I know I've played a part, a second part, on a play on Broadway. And if I didn't get a hiss when I came on, if they didn't hiss me, I felt I wasn't doing well. But I would say 99% of the time, as I came on and started to play my part, the audience hissed. Then I knew I was really on my toes. I was playing the part well because I was a cad in that part, and they couldn't restrain themselves, especially with the matinees when they had children there. Lots of ladies and children, and they could not restrain their emotion, and they were hissing for, then I knew, Neville, you're getting over all right. So I was thrilled with their hissing because I was playing only what was written for me to play. So in this wonderful world of ours, we are infinite states, and everyone is in a state, but the one being in one state is the being in all states. There's only one player, God only acts and is in existing beings or name. He is in all the states, and his name in all states is I am. So someone chooses the part, and he wants to be, well, a thief. He finds it easier. He thinks, I'm getting up, going to work, and punching a clock, and punching it out. He feels it's better for him to live that life. All right. So, he has chosen that part if he does it deliberately, for he might have fallen into it through habit of others, and then it's unwittingly. All right? But he will also pay the price. That is the thing he has to consider. He will pay the price because the part has a price with it. But in spite of that, he can be used in the fulfillment of your dreams. Now, many of you who have had, from your letters, dreams of death recently, may I tell you, it's a healthy sign. Dreams are egocentric. You cannot grow and not outgrow in this world. To outgrow is to die. You die to one state and you move into another state. So, anyone dreaming of death, many of you have dreamt of my death. Numberless times, as Paul said, I die daily. Every day he grows. If he did not die every day, well then, he didn't grow that day. So, death. When you see yourself buried, or you see yourself in a coffin, or you see these things in your dream, it's only a beautiful symbol of your growth. You are growing. That's why you see yourself buried, why you see yourself in a tomb. It's simply an expansion of consciousness. So you die to one state of consciousness as you enter a greater state of consciousness. So, when people see themselves dying, or others say, you're dead, it has nothing to do with a little physical body, because you don't die anyway, not really, for nothing dies. It's always an expansion, an expansion, an expansion. So when you do see yourself being buried, give praise. You have died to your former beliefs and these arcane concepts that you entertain, which only enslaved you. Right now, someone introduces you to a new idea, and you toy with the idea of accepting it, but you resist it for a while. Then suddenly, you see your body being entombed. It means it's gotten hold of you. These new ideas that will call you to an expansion of yourself. And so, the old man dies, that the new man may live. A seed must fall into the ground and die before it can be made alive. If it does not fall into the ground and die, then it cannot bring forth fruit. It simply remains what it was before. So if it dies, it bears much fruit. So don't be afraid of any vision of death. Death is the most glorious symbol in the mysteries of the expansion of consciousness. Man is expanding and expanding and expanding in this world, and one day his wonderful imagination will awaken, and that is God. Then he sees a whole vast world as sleepers, all sleepers, and how can you condemn the sleeper? So, he played his part, he played it beautifully. I can see all these things in my world where people play some many marvelous parts, and they were sound asleep, and they thought they were so alert, going to get the better of me, and their attempts to get the better were exactly what I needed to move on. Just move on. They had no idea they're playing their part beautifully. So, I forgive all the thieves that came into my world, even those who actually took, from my pocket, by not giving me what the contract called for. I thank them because it simply allowed me to become all the more secure upon my own feet, and not think for 1 second that I depended upon them or for anyone else in this world. So let them go their way. They're all sound asleep, playing their parts. But this thing that happened, I would say about 7-8 years ago, it was so forceful in my mind. My brothers thought that I was very courageous with this giant over my head to do what I did. It wasn't any courage. At that moment, I saw what he did. And when I said to him, "You didn't do it at all. I saw what you did. You stopped $2 there, and there they are." You didn't give him any $10 bills. He opened up his purse, and I saw all these ones, oodles of ones, and then a 20 and a couple of 10s at the side. And then he pulled out the 10s and gave them and took his 2 ones back. And then he went back to the door with the other partner of his and looked at me as though he could have killed me, but he didn't have the guts to hit me. He couldn't. If I were that big, he could have struck me, because I was speaking on an entirely different level. And on that level, when I knew I was going to get my seats, that's all that concerned me. "Here comes the 2 seats." And the man said, "Yes, sir." He treated me as though I stood before him as the president, and he thought, "Now, here is an honest man who saved me $20. I'm only playing the part. I only wanted 2 seats that night, because that's all that my brothers could give, because I had all these seats bought for them. All the shows for Broadway at the time, within 2 weeks, and every night after night, and matinees and everything else, got it right up to their heads in shows. So, I'm telling you, if you know of this dual being within you, in your limbs lie nations twain, rival races from their birth. One the mastery will gain, the younger over the elder reign. Now, see that that younger one actually reigns, and the younger one is your imagination. The older one is your sense man. The facts, these are the facts of life. What does my bank account, and I owe more than the bank account, have in it now? Well, now that is Esau's judgment. Now Jacob puts in 50 times what is there now. In my mind's eye, I deposited 50 times more than is there. How it's going to happen, I don't know. I don't know any more than I knew that day when I started out for the Metropolitan Opera, how I'm going to buy seats when the papers tell me you can't buy a seat. Huge big ad, save your time and don't come. Or, other seats are available but not for Aida. I go down only for Aida, and I get them because of a seeming thief played by the part of God. For God plays all the parts in the world. There is nothing but God. And say, "I am." That's God. That is the Lord Jesus within you. That is your immortal being that cannot die. He cannot die. That is your eternal self when you say, "I am." Imagination is not some vague essence. It is a body, a reality, an infinite body that is so perfect when it's awakened that in its presence everything is made perfect. But while it is awakening, it exercises that power and draws into its world everyone that can play their part for its fulfillment of its dream. So here I hope you heard it clearly. I hope I made it as clear as I can, because tonight should be a very practical night, that you will go out knowing who you are. You're a dual being. But the first man is of the dust, and to dust he returns. That is the man of earth. The second man is the Lord from heaven, and he cannot die. That's your own wonderful human imagination. It cannot die, but it sleeps. It sleeps embodied in this tomb, and one day it will awaken. As I've told you in the past, the symbolism of Scripture will surround you. It's perfect. It is true. Everything told to you in Scripture as to his birth, you are going to experience, and then your imagination awakens. And you trust no one but it, only this being within you do you really worship. Let them give all the medals and all the honors to this, that, and the other, to the little earthly man. It doesn't interest you. We firmly believe here that imagination creates reality. We believe that man is all imagination, and that God and man are one. There is no difference in nature. The difference which we recognize is in the degree of intensity of the operative center of imagining itself. We are keyed low. When keyed high, an imaginative act on our part would be an immediate objective fact, but keyed low, it must be realized in a time process. But it cannot fail if we remember the act and remain faithful to that act. A man can be what he wants to be in this world. No matter what you have done, you are one with God, and you are all imagination. We will turn now to the Bible, Acts 5. Peter is made to say, we must obey God and not man. And those present were angry to the point of which to do the disciples harm. But there was one among those who heard him, a teacher, a Pharisee, who said, do not kill them. For if this teaching or this work be of men, it will come to naught. But if it be of God, you cannot overthrow it, and you may even find yourselves in the position of having to fight against God. Name of the teacher, Gamaliel. Here we tell you that the Bible, which is the greatest book in the world, is completely misunderstood, for it is not history. It is a series of visions, which are acts of grace. It is the unveiling of the great reality that men call God. Matthew 26, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. And he cometh unto the disciples, and findeth them asleep, and saith unto Peter, What? Could ye not watch with me 1 hour? And again he said, If this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done. And he came and found them asleep again. You think that an individual 2,000 years ago went through an agonizing, frightful experience to save the world. No, the story is all about you. You are the being spoken of. The central figure of the Gospels is that presence in man, which is man's own wonderful imagination. But at the very limit of opacity in which it functions in this world, it is called the death of God. For to make man alive, he had to completely forget that he is God. The awakening of man to the height that is God will come, and our purpose for being here is to learn how to awaken. Cup means to imbibe, and he is called in the Bible the wine bibber, he who drains the cup. The man who said, do not touch them, etc., was Gamaliel, which comes from a word meaning to wean. As a child is weaned, so now it is able to go out and feed on other food. We are here to mature and to be weaned from what we have formerly thought was true. Years ago, I was sent to do this work that I am doing. I was told, go and down with the blue bloods. It means the traditional state. We speak of blue-blooded horses, blue-blooded people, meaning the fixed and accepted states. I was told to go out and tear down all the traditional misunderstandings of the greatest story ever told to man. It is not history. It did not take place in space or time. Go and tell them the story of Christ Jesus in man. If it be possible for this cup to pass from me, let it pass. But if I must drain the cup, I will do so. What is it I must do? I tell you that the story I have come to give you is the story of revision. You see a man, and he looks as he should not look to anyone in this world. My senses reveal him as he appears to me and others. I am confronted with the cup. Must I accept that appearance and perpetuate it in the world, or must I revise it and nail myself on the revised image? I must. So, I am crucified with Christ, yet not I, for Christ liveth in me, and the life I now live, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and became man. So, each time I see another as he should not be, I am confronted with the cup. and I must now imbibe to the fullest and become the wine bibber, and so yield to the image, and so live by it, that I see this man now as he should be. I must drain the cup. I must crucify myself on that image, even if I do not live long enough to see it resurrected. For it will be resurrected. Crucifixion without resurrection would be the very triumph of tyranny. There must be resurrection, for I will awaken, and so will you. Not one will fail to awaken, and then we will take every being in this world and take the ideal of that being, and so yield to it that we nail ourselves to that imagined state and remain faithful to it, so that no matter how long it takes, it will be done. That is the cup you and I are called upon to drink. It is offered to you tonight, not 2,000 years ago. You drink it for yourself or for a stranger. The man you want to be, that man you will be, if you will nail yourself to that state. That is reality. It seems crazy. Men reject the teaching of Christ and of Christianity, for the churches have no concept of this teaching. It has nothing to do with ritual. We conquer only by the sword of forgiveness. Identify the other with the ideal that he has failed to realize, and to the degree that you do it, you have truly forgiven him. Though as yet no one sees him as you now see him, still, if you walk faithful to it, you will make it real in your world. Do it for everyone. Everyone is immortal. He is not contained in this little body. I am not. You are not. I am scattered over all my Father's visible and invisible universe. So, reject me here and you will find me there. So I must in my mind's eye resurrect you, and you must in your mind's eye resurrect me. Not one can be left behind, for we are all scattered, and we must gather that which is scattered into the perfect body that my Father saw when he became it. So he became alive by nailing himself here on Golgotha, which means the skull. Here is where he is crucified, and the measure of awakening is measured by my awakening you in me. So, no matter what anyone has done, it was only in a nightmare. I will represent each to myself as my Father saw him, and to the degree that I lift each up within me, will the veils be removed, and God's eye will open, and I will see the perfection of everyone in the world. There is no place that you are not, and I am not, for you are infinite, and scattered all over God's universe. I cannot run away from you, so I must face you here and see you as you should be seen. And walking in that state, I lift it up. Now we can do it in other ways, the practical ways. What I am telling you now belongs to a higher level of being, but take it on a lower level if you wish. A job, or a home, or money, or health, whatever your need is. We are entitled to it, for God gave it to us. For you and I are citizens of heaven. I was actually sent to this sphere to tell you that no matter what your race or your background is, you are a child of God. Down with the blue bloods, the old traditional fixed beliefs. No matter who tells you otherwise, their concept is completely wrong. Every man living is God made visible, black, white, red, or yellow. Man goes through different stages of awakening. Do not think, because you are wearing a light pigment, that you are more awakened than one wearing a darker skin. Listen to them, Gamaliel said. And it means to wean, to ripen. If what they say is of men, it will fail. If it is of God, you cannot stop it, and you may even find yourselves opposing God. I know what I say is true. You can prove it. You can take anyone in your world and represent him to yourself as he would like to be. Take an incorrigible child and bring him before your mind's eye. and see him as you would like to see him, and he will embody that state. Revision is the most practical thing in the world. The story of Christ is the story of revision. But the world does not understand because it was told in a parable. It is told in the story of the unjust steward, which I have given you before. I know what the day revealed to me. Change the day. Can you change it? I was just reading this masterwork on psychology, which claims the past has ceased to be, but influences the present through memory. So it is said in this wonderful work that it has ceased to act, save through the gathered experiences stored as memory. It cannot be acted upon. It has not ceased to be at all. The sentient are not now in these states. A man who went through a gas chamber is no longer going through it. The forms remain, and the day will come when they will see that he never went through a gas chamber. There are many forms of the remembered past. Revise. Go back to your second year, if you can remember that far, and take any incident and change it and represent it to yourself as you wish it had been. And living in it, you will change your entire world now. For if the past is influencing the present, by the memory of it, you change anything in the past and then change the present. If I miscreate something God gives me, I have the opportunity of finding how to change it. I can stretch back in time and take any incident in my miscreated past and changing it, change my entire present. God became man, and he is in every being. There is no other way that God could become me but by giving himself in that becoming. Though I call myself Neville, it is still God. You think that is blasphemy? I do not care what you think. Every child born of woman is God, and that which became man is Christ Jesus. It bears this cross of man, and this state is like a tomb, and as Blake says, God himself enters death's door with them who enter it, and lies down in the grave, with them in visions of eternity until they awake. God himself entered this grave when I jumped in my mother's womb, and he will never leave me, for if he should leave me, I would cease to be. And then I awake by doing for the whole world what God did for man. So take any man's dream and nail yourself mentally upon that cross by imagining he is that being he desires to be, and walk just as though it is true, and live in the dream for the other as if it is true, and as it becomes true, you will lift him up. Man saves himself by, and only by, the saving of his fellow man. He who lifts up the world is lifting up the eye of God within himself, and when he is fully awake, then he is God. Do not ask another why he wants something. Give what he asks for. You persuade yourself that he has it as you witnessed it, and to the degree that you persuade yourself that he has it, so will it become true. No reward. You want no reward. Whether a man is wonderful or horrible, do not condemn him. All are in states which the soul falls into, in its dreams of good and evil. You make it your business to see that everyone is already the ideal he wishes to embody, no matter what it is. For in this way, you are opening up the eye of God. For this is the story of Christ. If it really is of God, then you cannot stop it. All he asks is that I try. Must I drink this cup? Yes. There is no other way than the way of the cross. I must cross one state to another state. We conquer by the cross. It is not a thing hanging on the wall, though as an object, it is very beautiful. It is crossing from where you are to where you want to be, from seeing what you appear to see to seeing what you want to see. That is the Passover. I cross from one state to another. Is there any other way? If it is possible, then let this cup pass from me. If not, then thy will be done. What is God's will? All that you gave me, I have kept, and none have I lost. All that he gave me, I must lift up again, and he gave me you and you. I meet you, and you are a gift from my Father out of the nowhere. I must lift you up, for I will meet you beyond all the veils, for you are an infinite being. You have an immortal body, and there is no place in God's universe that you are not. If I do not redeem you here in me, I will meet you elsewhere and still have to redeem you. Well, the most practical teaching in the world is also the most profoundly spiritual. There is no transforming power in death. Think of your home right now. At this moment, it is subjective to you as you are seated here. You do not see it with these physical eyes. It is subjective to this room. But really in your heart you do not think it is subjective as the world speaks of it. It is out of the range of your senses. But you know it is right where you left it. It is the same with all the worlds of my Father. Subjective and objective are determined by the level on which consciousness is focused. Everything is objective to my Father. And when I awake, my dream may seem unreal and therefore subjective, but it is not if I am interested. For then it should become to me objective, for that is only defined by the level on which consciousness is focused. While my dream lasts, is it not objective? I recently told the story that if you can touch something and hold on to it and awaken, you will awaken in your dream world and find it completely objective. A lady wrote to tell me she tried it and proved it. I know from experience it cannot fail if you try it, and you will prove that subjective and objective are just names. To the psychologist, objective is just you, from the cradle to the grave. But think of this fantastic universe extending beyond 100 million light years. It is estimated by a great scientist that if each star represented one tiny grain of sand, and only those stars which are visible to this world were included, this sand would cover England to a depth of several hundred yards. If you are only on this little speck, then what are you? They spoke only of the stars, not including the planets. And then someone says, they have 1,000 acres. The common man, which means us, sees things about us as so solidly real. We feel it is real if we can touch it. But the scientist says it is not solidly real at all, but is only an aggregation of molecules and atoms and electrons moving rapidly in space. They say our experience of a solidly real object is actually what they call electromagnetic fields between my fingers and the object. But my finger is of the same material as the object. If both are all space, then the one we spoke of just owns 1,000 acres of all space. Possessions mean nothing. What is important is the awakening of God in man. When man begins to awake, he does not desire to possess the earth. He is the earth, and he is heir to everything, for his Father gave it to him. Finally, you awaken and claim it. Let no one tell you that this person is better than that one. The sun shines on the just and the unjust. If you salute only your brother, if you love only those who love you, how are you better than another? You are doing nothing that all do not do, but it does not matter. It is only awakening that matters. So take every person in the world and try to awaken him in you by lifting him up. So crucify yourself for him, for that is a little death in the divine image. As you go through these little deaths, seeing what you should see and dying to what you formerly saw, then God sees, and then you find nothing to condemn. For no matter who the man is, It is God playing every part. So there is a complete misunderstanding of the greatest story in the world. The gospel does not tell how Christ came at all, but how he comes. He must come in the mind of every being in the world. If he came 2,000 years ago, he is now gone. But if he comes in the mind of every man, that is important. He comes as God came to man, by so loving him that he became man and died by believing that he was man. But man must do the same thing for his fellow man as God did for him, and he yields to the dream for another. And to the degree that he is faithful to it, he will make it real in the world, and then finally, he awakens. Ask me how I know? I know. Years ago, on a little freighter in the Caribbean, I retired early. And then I found myself outside my body, which remained on my bed. I was in a lovely twilight, and I found I radiated this twilight, for there was no sun or moon, only this light from myself. I floated in this state. I did not walk. And I heard this heavenly chorus singing, "He is risen." And I knew they meant me. I found myself beside this vast sea of sick and malformed beings waiting, and I know they waited for me. And as I passed, each was refolded and refashioned into the image of perfection. Missing eyes or limbs reappeared. All became perfection because it was so that I beheld it. Then I heard the voices say, "It is finished." And then I became crystallized again into this opacity called Neville. So when man is lifted up, all that is unlovely is lifted up, and there is nothing unlovely on that higher level. Raise it up by revision, for everyone is there, and when you raise him within yourself to that level, you will find he is completely perfect. On this level, you see only scattered portions of his eternal body, but when you rise high enough, you will find him perfect. I felt, after the experience I have just spoken of, that I had a fantastic fight with death, and I had been victorious. What formerly was unlovely I had overcome, and in overcoming, I had lifted every being with me. I know it is not a unique experience, for on a certain level, every being is perfect. You rise to that level as you lift up another within you. For there are no strangers, there is only God. For God became man, that man awakening may become God. You can ignore any being here, call him your servant, whatever you like, but he is also immortal, and you will meet him in God's fabulous universe, and then you will understand John 17. Now return unto me the glory that was mine before the world was. And of all that thou gavest me, not one is lost, save the son of perdition, the belief in loss. And they dwell in me, and I in them, and we in thee. Now let us go into the silence. Question: what should I do after I have made the mental structure? Is there not something to be done on the outside, such as work, etc.? Neville. Your dream compels physical changes, if they are necessary to make it true in this world. It is like a child growing toward the moment of birth. It exerts such pressure that it cannot be held back. For my dream is an unborn child, and regardless, that child will be born when the time is come. These pressures force physical transformations.